mentioned, you brought the pastor back up, and it sounds like
Mm-hmm.
that was certainly a pivotal experience for you
Yeah.
in terms of kind of triggering some thought.
Right.
You might say, as Greg Kokel says, he kind of put a stone in your shoe as you
Right.
walked away from the church thinking, man, there might be
That's right.
something to be found here. Maybe it's not believing that this is truth as Christianity, but for you it was,
Right.
this is interesting. There may be some wisdom to be found here.
That's right.
So in terms of this umbrella of evidential arguments for God's existence, how, say I'm just a neighbor that you have, you interact with me on an occasion, small talk mostly, and I've dropped hints that I'm not necessarily a Christian,
Right.
and now, I'm starting to make statements. What are some of the stones you might try and leave in my shoe if I just start to say things like, I don't believe God exists, or I don't think there's a reason that I should believe God exists. I don't see a need for this.
Yeah.
How do we start to go down the road of actually engaging with these questions?
Okay, so let's go a little bit. Let's say you're not my neighbor. Let's say you're my dad.
All right.
Because that is my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is he not interested, and I know he's not interested, I have to be very careful about how I even initiate conversations about it, because I can tell that I could ruin a trip pretty quickly if I say too much about this.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for opportunities. And I think most of us who do this work professionally, or who are working with staff with students, we kind of master each other's approaches. And there's some really good stuff out there. Greg Kokel's stuff on tactics is wonderful. Good key questions to ask. But my partner in crime, Frank Turek, also has good approaches. Let me just offer a combination of these.
Yeah.
One of the best questions you can ask anybody is, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? Would you believe it?
Well, prove to me that it's true.
Well, first of all, if
Sure.
it is true,
Well,
before
I'd
I
have
do
to.
that,
Right.
so I'm
If
just
it's
gonna
true,
if it's true, would
I
you
gotta
believe
say
it?
yes.
Well,
I
yeah,
have
you
to.
would hope so, but
Well-
I can tell you most of the people I talk to about this who are hesitant, they won't give you a yes. You'd be surprised. Well, I don't think it's true. No, I'm not saying if it's true. Assume it's true for a second, just for the sake of argument. If Christianity is true, would you become a Christian?
So say I say no. What
Well,
if
then
I
it's
say,
a problem of the heart and not of the head. And at least I know how to begin. And I know the issue is, and if I know you have a heart issue about this, because there's three reasons to deny any truth claim. One is rationally. I call this the reasons why you would shun the truth. First one is rational, okay?
All right.
The second one is emotional. And the third is volitional. And it turns out that the second two really occupy most of the space here when it comes to why people object. Most people don't even know what the evidence they would even trust. They don't even know anything about evidence, the rules of evidence, the nature of evidence. That's part of what I try to do with people. Instead, they're objecting for emotional or volitional reasons, and they will label them as rational because nobody wants to say, well, I don't want it to be true. But when you ask that question, if it were true, would you believe it? And they say, I don't know. Well, then they don't want it to be true. It's a volitional issue. Now, how do I address volitional resistance? How do I address someone like my dad? So let me tell you how I've kind of penned this out. My suggestion to people when they are actually making the case for Christianity is to do the first things well. We always think about, well, how will I make this case? People ask me, how do you make the case in front of a jury? What wins? What makes you successful? Is it in opening statements? Is it in the evidence show? Is it in closing argument? Is it in rebuttal? Is it in jury deliberation? It's none of those things. You win cases at jury selection. Sorry, it's true. You pick the wrong jury, you don't get anywhere. You pick the right jury, it's all easy street. Pick the right jury. We do a voir dire process where we actually evaluate jurors before we impanel them. There are people we don't put on a jury. Both sides, they don't want some people. The whole jury selection process, 75 people sitting in a room waiting to get picked. We only got to pick 12 plus 4 alternates for a long trial. 16 people are getting in the box. We're going to deny a lot of people. Well, how do we choose those people? Well, we want people who are not on the edges, people who are violently opposed to the defense team or violently opposed to the prosecuting team. Those people don't get in the box. No defense attorney wants people who trust every cop and they hate defense attorneys. And no prosecutor wants somebody who hates cops and trusts all the defense team. So you're picking people in the reasonable middle. Well, we don't even think about jury selection when it comes to our friends and family. But if you're not in that reasonable middle, I can't make a case to you at all. Because you've already decided the truth before I begin, and you're not even open to suggestion.